I'm sure you've read about the layoffs from the tech industry to Wall Street to pretty much any industry. And, actually small businesses are struggling too. I mean, it's tough to be a small business. Stay tuned to not only hear about my experiences, but also my thoughts on what it takes to be a small business owner and the challenges that you just simply must overcome.
Tech companies have announced another round of job cuts.
Facebook and Instagram has started its latest round of layoffs.
LinkedIn just laid off nearly 700 employees. Qualcomm is planning to.
Microsoft is laying off hundreds more local employees starting on May 5th.
There are many CEO peer groups out there. One of the ones that I've attended a couple of times is Visage, which I think is a great group. And it was really interesting, one of the meetings I went to, because, you go there, you think everybody's very successful, and, I knew some of the folks there, and I knew for a fact that they were very successful. And it's just so interesting because somebody commented about making how hard it was at one point in their business's life to make payroll. I'm just thinking, man, I didn't really realize that idea that everybody who owns a business at some point probably struggled to make payroll. That kind of opened my eyes to the concept and the thought that, as good and as successful as some of these businesses look, if you peel back the onion a little bit, it's still probably going to be a healthy company, but it's just not as easy and great as it might seem to be on the outside. So it's great to know other people have been through that, and it's a little bit reassuring, but it really doesn't, just the knowledge isn't enough. I mean, you really need to go through that yourself, at least in my opinion. As the CEO, you are getting hit from employees, from suppliers, from customers, from various stakeholders in the community and whatnot. And even though they're not all talking to you about the same time, a big part of your job is not only engaging with that stakeholder and making sure that they feel like their input is valued, but it's synthesizing all the data coming from many different directions. The most challenging period was when I was CEO of a company, and we were really in a dark period. I'm gonna be honest with you. And it wasn't just one factor. The interesting part is it was really like 3 or 4 different factors. And if it had only been 2, then it would have been a lot different situation. But it was really 4 that all happened, not on the same day or the same week, but really 4 that happened over the course of, let's call it 3 or 4 months. Now, I don't think the specific examples are important, but I think the types of examples were important. One of it was, general economic conditions. A couple of others were the fact that internally we made some mistakes. I don't want to, sugarcoat it. We did make some mistakes. And then third, it was a variety of projects all culminating at the same time. Our customers all wanting their project to be prioritized, and you know how that goes. I mean, sometimes you can do it, but if all your customers are clamoring at the same time, somebody's probably going to get the short straw. And that's what happened. And talk about making payroll, yeah, I mean, there were some periods there where it was razor thin and it was very stressful. But in terms of thinking about how that shapes you as a CEO or a professional, I mean, it really gives you a lot of confidence whenever you're facing other issues in the business. If you haven't been in that situation, I don't think you can fully appreciate the stress and all the pressure of that situation, in that if you don't make payroll, people aren't going to be able to put food on the table. I mean, it's not just like it's an embarrassing situation when like a check bounces or you forget to make a utility payment or whatnot. It's much more dire than that. And that pressure is how you eventually get strengthened so that whenever there's a big decision about a specific strategy or how you want to deal with a customer or whatever, I don't want to say it's easy, but in terms of the ramifications, you just feel more confident in making those decisions because of all the challenges that you've been through prior to. But, there have also been challenges at some of the companies that we've been, or that I've just been a board member on. One example is with a specific customer. Whenever we were analyzing the customer relationship of this acquisition candidate, it was a situation where one of the key customers wanted their supplier to grow with them, And the owner just said, listen, like I'm comfortable where I'm at right now. I'm just not interested in buying 3 or 5 pieces of equipment to pursue that growth and whatnot. The interesting point is that even though the customer continued to send business to the company that we were considering buying, or that we did end up buying, what we didn't know until a few months afterwards is that they were trying to replace that supplier because the supplier wasn't growing fast enough with them. So now we're 3 months, 3 or 6, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what, but relatively short period of time, in having owned this business, and we find out that one of our major customers is threatening to leave. And what I will tell you is that what really saved us, my partner, who was the CEO, navigated the customer relationship. I mean, I almost think he did it perfectly. I mean, the relationship was repaired. We proved that we were willing to grow, and it's really going to be a great story. And kind of coming back to, one of the 4 pillars of our name, relationships as a cornerstone for success. I mean, boom, like right there, that is a great example of how we really lived one of our 4 pillars as in terms of building that relationship so that not only we could repair it and make sure that we maintain the level of business with that customer, but we could actually have a great growth opportunity with that customer. I mean, I've talked a little bit about how some of these challenges make you into a stronger person or a more confident leader or whatever. And definitely, I think that's very important. But also, I think those things are important when you're thinking about who you want to sell your business to, and or whether or not 4 Pillars is an attractive investment partner, whether or not you want to invest in some of the deals that 4 Pillars is buying. And what I would tell you is that absolutely this experience is important. In our industry, what you see is that you see a lot of private equity firms that are started by members of previous private equity firms. So, let's say, Joe or Sam or whoever used to work with private equity company XYZ. They worked there for a few years, and now all of a sudden they decide they want to start their own private equity company. They call it ABC, and maybe the strategy is tweaked a little bit, or their prior firm was on fund like 7 or 8, and it was just getting to be so large where they had to pursue larger deals, and now a couple of people spin off to go back to pursuing smaller deals or whatever, and that happens a lot. I'm not being critical of it. I mean, it's just how it is. And so absolutely, those guys that create those spin-offs have a lot of experience in private equity, and they clearly know what they're doing. However, what I would say is we have a different type of experience. I mean, we are definitely entrepreneurs first. We have been in the trenches. We have been leading companies whenever they've been through challenges. And, why is that important? Well, one, I always think it's good to have walked in the shoes of, whoever you're working with, especially on a big deal. If you're selling your business, I would like to think that it might feel a little bit better to know that the person you're selling your business to, or the group or whatever, has run companies, has struggled to make payroll or whatever, and has the chops to get through that. The second one, though, and I think this is equally important to business owners or potential investors, is really just the idea that we have the experience of going through challenging situations, and we've been able to get those companies through those challenging situations and ultimately make them very successful. So from the business owner's perspective, whether it's challenging macroeconomic conditions or new competitor or whatever, the case that I would make is that we've actually been in those situations because we've been running businesses that have encountered those situations. From an investor, maybe we don't foresee something, but the business gets in a pinch. Well, would you rather have somebody leading that company, at least on the board level, that has actually gotten a company through a challenging period? Or, would you just like somebody that probably hasn't had that experience? When you think about the values that we have at 4 Pillars, relationships and challenge the status quo and all the others, we seek to partner with business owners and investors that buy into this concept, the concepts of, relationships as a cornerstone for success. I would love to hear your thoughts. I mean, do you appreciate the idea that someone has been in your shoes? Does that feel important to you? Or Is it just one of those things where maybe it's a nice to have or you really don't care at all? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you.